What you're about to hear was buried for nearly 7 decades, hidden, suppressed, denied by every major scientific institution on Earth. But here's the thing that'll blow your mind. One of history's greatest geniuses, Albert Einstein himself, secretly believed something that would shatter everything you think you know about death. And now, thanks to a discovery that happened just 2 years ago, his explosive confession has finally surfaced. Before we dive into this rabbit hole together, hit that like button if you're ready to have your reality completely flipped upside down. And make sure you're subscribed, because what I'm sharing today isn't just another feel-good story. It's potentially the most important information you'll ever hear. Picture this: Princeton, 1954. Einstein has 1 year left to live, and he knows it. In the shadows of his study, away from prying eyes and recording devices, he sits across from an unnamed journalist. What happens next was never supposed to reach your ears. The conversation begins with what seems like a simple question, but Einstein's response, it changes everything. "Professor Einstein, do you believe in the continuation of life after death?" Now, you'd expect the man who gave us relativity theory to brush this off with cold, hard science, right? Wrong, dead wrong. After a long pause, and I mean long, Einstein does something that would have sent shockwaves through the scientific community. He smiles, not a dismissive smile, a knowing smile. "To believe is not the right word," he says. "At my age, I prefer to know." Hold up. Did Einstein just say he knows what happens after death? The journalist is stunned. He pushes back. "But science, your science, has always denied the existence of the soul." And here's where it gets absolutely mind-blowing. Einstein leans forward and delivers a response that would make every materialist scientist lose their minds. "Not my science. Science, as understood by the masses, is limited to the observable. It is blind to what does not fit into formulas." But then he says something that sends chills down your spine. "What I am about to say must remain between us, at least until humanity is ready. Life does not cease with death." This is not a hypothesis. This is a fact. You're probably thinking, wait, what? Einstein believed in an afterlife. But here's the kicker: he didn't just believe it. He claimed to have mathematical proof. Let me paint you a picture that'll make this crystal clear. Einstein explains consciousness like this. Imagine you're watching a wave on the ocean. The wind creates the wave, and as long as there's wind, that wave exists. But when the wind stops, what happens to the water? It doesn't vanish. It returns to the ocean. Your consciousness, that's the wave. Your body, that's just the temporary wind that gives the wave its shape. When your body dies, your consciousness doesn't disappear. It returns to what Einstein calls the ocean. But wait, it gets even crazier. The journalist, probably struggling to process this bombshell, asks how this fits with relativity theory. Einstein's response will make you question everything you thought you knew about reality. He explains that his equations deal with matter and energy, but there's always been a missing piece: the observer, consciousness itself. And here's the mind bender. Consciousness isn't produced by matter, it's primary. It comes first. Think about this for a second. Einstein is saying that the entire universe exists because someone is there to perceive it. Without consciousness, there's no reality as we know it. And after death, consciousness doesn't disappear. It returns to the source, pure perception itself. Now, if you're starting to feel like Alice falling down the rabbit hole, you're not alone. The journalist in this interview felt the same way. But Einstein wasn't done dropping truth bombs. When asked about God, Einstein delivers perhaps the most profound statement of the entire conversation. God is not a person. not a bearded old man on a cloud. God is the ocean itself. The consciousness of all beings merges in this ocean. That is why no one who has ever lived disappears forever. Let that sink in for a moment. According to Einstein, death isn't the end, it's a homecoming. But here's where skeptics might jump in. How can a scientist of Einstein's caliber make such metaphysical claims? His answer reveals something that'll change how you see scientific discovery forever. Einstein wasn't speaking from faith. He was speaking from knowledge gained through his work on unified field theory. He discovered a single structure connecting matter, energy, and consciousness. At the quantum level, beyond atoms, beyond emptiness, beyond vibrations, there's mind. And if you think that sounds impossible, consider this. Einstein points to quantum entanglement as proof. When two particles interact and then separate, they remain connected regardless of distance. Change one, and the other responds instantly. Einstein asks a question that'll haunt you. If particles can be connected across space, why cannot consciousnesses be connected across death? This means consciousness isn't trapped in your brain. Your brain is just an antenna, a receiver. The source lies beyond time and space. Death isn't the destruction of the antenna, it's just disconnecting one channel of communication. But the signal continues. Now, you might be wondering why Einstein chose to reveal this earth-shattering information. His reason will give you goosebumps. Because time is running out, he explains. I am already at the threshold and the truth must not pass away with me. Humanity stands on the brink of the greatest discovery, the understanding that death is not the enemy. It is a transition. But here's the terrifying part. Einstein explains why this truth has been hidden. If this truth becomes known too soon, it can be distorted, used for power, for manipulation. As midnight strikes during their conversation, and trust me, the timing feels prophetic, Einstein reveals what awaits us on the other side. And it's not what most people expect. According to Einstein, what happens after death depends entirely on your level of awareness during life. Those who lived for power, pleasure, and selfishness, they remain tied to lower layers of reality, wandering among shadows of their past. But those who sought truth, who loved, who served others, they ascend, merge with the source, and find peace. But here's the part that might shock you most. Rebirth is real, but it's not automatic. It's a choice. Free will, Einstein explains, is the highest law. When consciousness is ready, it can leave the cycle entirely. That's what the ancients called liberation, not death of individuality, but dissolution into an ocean of light without fear, without pain, only love. The journalist, probably overwhelmed by these revelations, asks why other great minds don't speak openly about these truths. Einstein's response reveals a conspiracy of silence that spans centuries. Because the truth is both too simple and too dangerous. The scientist fears being ridiculed. Religion fears losing power. Politicians fear losing control. Truth is free. And everyone who is accustomed to ruling fears freedom. But Einstein reveals that he wasn't alone. Newton knew, Planck knew, Tesla knew. Even Darwin, by the end of his life, suspected something greater than chance drove evolution. They all chose silence or spoke in allegories. Then Einstein drops perhaps his most significant revelation. Remember his famous equation E equals mc2. It revealed the equivalence of mass and energy. But Einstein confesses there's another level he never spoke about publicly. Consciousness is also energy, a very subtle form of energy that can be transformed. When your body dies, the energy of consciousness passes into another form, other dimensions. Call it soul, call it quantum consciousness, the name doesn't matter. What matters is that it continues. So does death exist? Einstein's answer is nuanced. Death exists, but not in the way people understand it. There is the death of form, the death of the body, the death of the personality connected to a particular life. But the essence is immortal. Just as energy cannot disappear but only changes form, consciousness doesn't die. Everyone who has ever lived still exists in other levels of reality. Their thoughts, emotions, experiences, all preserved in what Einstein calls a vast field that some know as the Akasha. And here's something that'll make you rethink every strange experience you've ever had. We're connected to this field constantly. Intuition, déjà vu, premonitions, these are echoes of this connection. But if consciousness continues, why do we experience suffering, illness, and loss? Einstein's answer reveals the hidden purpose behind life's hardships. Suffering is a school. Without the experience of pain, consciousness cannot develop. Just as muscles grow under strain, so the spirit is strengthened through trials. Every life is a lesson. Even the hardest destinies have purpose, though our human minds can't always understand it. When we leave this place, everything becomes clear, and we realize no one has ever truly been alone. All paths lead to unity. But Einstein warns of a dangerous trend he observed even in 1954. Humanity was moving toward division, technology advancing while morality lagged behind, people forgetting their connection to each other, seeing enemies instead of reflections of themselves. His prophetic words ring true today. If humanity does not realize its true nature, it may not survive the next century. The choice is ours. Either we accept the truth, we are all one, or we destroy ourselves. This is why Einstein broke his lifelong silence. His final message to humanity: death is not the end. The enemy is not another person. The enemy is ignorance. Knowledge is light, and light conquers darkness. When asked if there's any way to prove consciousness continues after death, Einstein points to evidence that science refuses to acknowledge. Memories of past lives in children, quantum entanglement phenomena that can't be explained without recognizing non-material connections, cases of clinical death, where people described events occurring outside their physical bodies. Einstein predicts that future scientists will create devices capable of recording changes in consciousness fields after bodily death. But even with undeniable proof, he warns, the main task remains unchanged. To elevate our actions, accept responsibility, and understand that thoughts, words, and deeds don't disappear, but continue to exist in the unified field of reality. As their extraordinary conversation draws to a close, Einstein shares his final insight. In my youth, it seemed the most important thing was to discover the laws of the universe, to find a formula that would explain everything. But over the years, I realized the most difficult task is to understand oneself, one's connection to others. His parting words echo through time. We fear death because we fear losing, but there is nothing to lose. All that is true remains with us. Love, good deeds, memories. All this moves forward even if we do not always understand how. The interview ends with Einstein's ultimate guidance. Live not in fear, live in search. That is all that matters. Drop a comment below and tell me what you think about Einstein's hidden revelations. Are you ready to accept that everything you've been taught about death might be wrong? And if this content opened your mind to new possibilities, share it with someone who needs to hear this truth. Remember, the truth doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. But when it comes from Einstein himself, Maybe it's time we started listening.